Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 2024 release, Things Will Be Different, and I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I highly recommend this film. Now, it's not going to end up being for everyone, unfortunately, and I will compare it to an existing film out there, but that's going to be at the very end because that actually is kind of spoilery. It gives away the concept that's being worked with the film, and I don't want to give that away because this is also a film that I feel like a lot of people would benefit from going in knowing as little as possible because it is a very interesting, enjoyable, puzzling ride. So yeah, highly recommending this one. So anyway, written and directed by Michael Felker, who did a bunch of Ruin the Internet comedy. I have to just pause right now and say, claps to Michael Felker because not only was this script probably very hard to conceptualize and write properly, but then to actually get it on film, to actually bring this to the screen had to be very difficult as well, especially because you can tell that this is a very low budget independent film. You can very easily tell that. And one of the main reasons being it's pretty much all shot at like one location. That's your first tip off. Also, it's a very small cast, and also it just looks and feels low budget. There isn't a whole lot of, I don't think there's any CGI used in the film. There's a little bit of practical effects, but not much. So it's very bare bones, but what was able to be pulled off, pretty phenomenal for how low you can tell the budget is. Anyway, I rented this through Fandango at home for $7.41. That's with tax. Well worth it. I would have paid more for this. Synopsis. Obviously, I don't want to give too much away because I think going in not knowing a whole lot is the best. So I would just say it's about a brother and sister who you get the idea early on aren't very close anymore, but the brother kind of makes some comments about wanting to kind of make things up to her and make things right and give her more time and kind of rekindle their relationship. But they have robbed a bank and they need to get away from the police, basically. So they end up going to this house that they had found out about that has a secret that will help them hide and get away from the police. And that's as much as I'm going to say. Yes, there is a little bit of a horror element to it. This has the horror genre pasted on it like everywhere, but I don't think it's overtly horror. I think it's horror elements to it, but I'll go with it, and it may end up showing up on like my top films, horror films of 2024 list, but I'm going to go with the whole horror thing because, yeah, there's some like horror-ish things with it, but I think one of the reasons it got slapped with the horror genre on it is because I think with a film like this, and you'll see what I mean if you watch it, or you'll know what I mean if you already have, it's hard to get an audience for it unless you can find a more open-minded audience, and the horror audience is pretty much the most open-minded audience there is. So I think that they're the ones who are more likely to give something like this a shot as opposed to any other fan base, really. So I think that's kind of the reason they did that, but I could be wrong as well. So that's it for the synopsis. In the very beginning, they play a phone call during the opening credits to give a little bit of backstory, which really is not a bad use of time. If you're going to do opening credits anyway, you might as well fill in a little bit of backstory by playing some audio over it. So I thought that was a smart idea. The way the main characters bounce off of each other is very interesting and engaging. Real quick, shout out to, where did I put that down? Adam David Thompson and Riley Dandy. They gave their roles their all. They are the two main characters in this film. You can see why they were chosen as actors because they do a phenomenal job, and their chemistry together is perfect. Like I was saying, how they bounce things back and forth between the two of them, it speaks to their acting prowess. They did a outstanding job with these roles, but it also speaks to the writing. The dialogue is really well written, the characters are very well written, and the overall story is very well written. Like I said in the beginning of this, it must have been a very hard script to write. I can't even, I was trying to think like how I personally would sit down and try and write that script. I'm just like, I just don't think I can. It's just something that's beyond me. I wouldn't have the patience. That's one of the big things. It's pretty interesting right out of the gate, I will say. They get to intrigue very early on, which is obviously very important, especially for films like this, to kind of suck a person in and kind of be like, make them want more. To be like, okay, I need to know the underlying what's happening here. The score is pretty minimalist, and I really like that about it. I think it works very well with this film. A lot of kind of, low sounding, like guttural strings that are used in the score, and I love that. And they don't go too hard at it either. Like when there's the more intense moments happening, they're not like blaring the score at you. So I love the fact that they are more restrained with the use of the score, in addition to the composition of the score being quite good. Things in the film look very simple. What's in shots, the set design, the costuming, everything is simplistic. Going along with that minimalist score, everything is very simple looking. Everything's kind of normal and kind of drab looking, which is an interesting choice. It's kind of like a less is more type thing, and I think part of that has to do with budget. But I think another part of it was just a conscious choice to just make things more focused on a less is more kind of outlook, and like a minimalist take on things. Um, it starts to feel like a kind of creepy puzzle video game. If anyone has played those types of like video games where it's kind of like, now you go over here and you got to figure out what the puzzle is with this thing in this creepy old house. Oh, you figure that out. Now you got to go to the next thing, and like you don't really know what's going on, but you're hoping by the end of the game that you have like a full picture of like what the story really was supposed to be, if it's done right. And this is one of those films, like it gives you that feel very similar to those types of games, which is cool. Like the puzzle aspect is a fun time. There are a bunch of odd angle and perspective shots, which helps with a feeling of things kind of being off, which is really important because I think, that's what the characters themselves are experiencing, is that things don't feel right. Things feel very off. Like their lives are kind of like flipped upside down. So for those like weird angles, like it makes you feel a little bit weird how you're looking at things, and it just gives you this little bit of like surreal feeling to it, which works very, very well with the subject matter of this film, which again I'm not going to tell you right now. Some of the concepts are pretty dense, so they can be a little bit hard to follow. This is one of those films where most likely it's you catch a lot more on a second viewing. And I may actually go back and go ahead and do that, especially because I'm doing this a video the next day and I still have the rental for I think like another few hours, so I could do that. But it's definitely one of those films where you get done with it and there's a lot you can catch if you go back to watch it again. So yeah, might want to do that. The pacing is not great, unfortunately, but you get enough breadcrumbs to really keep you engaged. And that's the important thing. Like the overall drive of I need to know what's going on here. I need to see what's going to happen next. But then also being sucked in by how great these acting performances acting performances are. How good the cinematography does look. It's just very engaging, even though it's very slow. And usually I'm like the first person who does, movie reviews to point out pacing issues. So there is a pacing issue there. I do wish that this film was kind of cut down a little bit. It's like a little bit over an hour and 40 minutes, which I think they could have shaved some off here and there, but I'm also not mad at it as is. The ending takes a bit, but it is a pretty nice payoff. It's actually a very good payoff, in my opinion, especially for, again, this being a low-budget independent film. I think the payoff is quite good. But like I said, it takes a bit. It's part of that pacing issue. It kind of takes a little bit too long, it feels like, to kind of get what they were going to. Again, though, shout out to Adam David Thompson and Riley Dandy. Great, great, great performances in this one. So this film, as the title kind of says to it, kind of speaks to the desire to fix things in life. But there's this thing of like, can you actually fix things, or are there things that just aren't fixable? Like everybody has those things in life that you just regret. And it's a question of, do you just make peace with the fact that you made that mistake and you regret that and try to move on, or do you try to undo that issue? And what are the results going to be? Like, will you even be able to achieve that, or will you not? So It's kind of one of those things. So now, if you don't want to know what film I'm going to compare this to, because that gives away the conceptual stuff with this film, go ahead and, well, before you stop, I'm going to give this a very good 3.5 out of 5 stars. Just know that. And also, subscribe to the channel if you want to help me out. Thumbs up on the video if you want to help me out with that. Notification bell button, you can do that if you want to pitch in monetarily with the channel. I have membership links in the description, and you can see, you know, what you get for a small monthly fee with this channel. But anyway, go ahead and log off now if you don't want to know what I'm comparing it to. Go ahead and watch this film, then you can come back, comment, and we can talk spoilers in the comments. That's totally cool, but I'll give people a second. Okay. So the film I want to really compare this to is one that I really enjoy myself, and that is a film called Primer. And I don't remember exactly what year it's from, but also a very low-budget independent film. And I'm not going to specifically say what conceptually is going on in that film, but if you've seen Primer, you know exactly where I'm going with this. If you liked Primer, I think there's a very high likelihood that you're going to like this film, because it's very smart like Primer. A lot of stuff is kind of executed like Primer. May have been an inspiration. I don't know. But anyway, that's it. And I'm going to close my review there. Thank you, everyone, for taking your time to check this out. And until next time, keep it brutal.